Welcome to Spirits with Spirits, or welcome back to Spirits with Spirits, if you've been following us. I am Richard Carradine.
And I'm Jordan Monsell, and yeah, episode 2.
All right, they said it would never last.
It seems like it's been a really long time. Has it been a long time for you? It's only been a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it feels like at least 30 days.
Yeah. That's about a month.
Okay. So yeah, we're here again to talk more about places where you can have a drink and enjoy the things that go bump in the night.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps witness a paranormal.
If you're lucky. And this episode, we're very pleased to announce we have a sponsor. We are sponsored by Midsummer Scream, the Halloween convention festival.
In Long Beach, California.
And how would you describe Midsummer Scream?
It's amazing. I've been going since their first year. I think they're in their third or fourth year. And it's gotten to the point where I like Midsummer Scream even more than the actual holiday of Halloween. Because as you all know, like Halloween can sometimes fall on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and you got to work the next day. But Midsummer Scream I would describe it as a celebration of all things Halloween, but it's in the summer, right?
Right. It's basically a preview of things that are coming up in Halloween time. So all the big
haunts
and scare attractions preview what they're going to be doing. They show their concept art or reveal storylines that they're going to be doing. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a look into things that are going to be happening in October, as well as a kind of a place where you can hobnob with fellow Halloween enthusiasts. And there's hundreds of vendors all selling Halloween stuff.
You can take workshops of if you're going to be planning your own home haunt,
right?
How to carve a tombstone out of foam.
So if Halloween is your favorite holiday, this is basically the event for you. And I'm going to assume if you're listening to this broadcast, you fall into that category.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've been doing it as well since the first year. I'm a vendor there, and I will be there again this year.
As am I.
So, definitely come to Midsummer Scream and drop by our table and say hello.
Their website is?
midsummerscream.org. And tickets have just gone on sale.
Mm-hmm.
And also a little Midsummer secret. If you sign up for their mailing list, they'll tell you about deals for tickets and stuff. And they tell you, give you a little heads up of things that are happening in the convention.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Even if you don't live in Southern California, it's totally worth driving to. If you live, even in Arizona, I would totally drive in and check this out.
And people do.
People do. Oh yeah,
because I've had people come to my table who are from all over the country. And likewise, they have vendors and they have presentations. The Winchester Mystery House always has a presence there, even though they're not a local thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As well as other haunts around Arizona and California.
Yeah. And Richard and I might be doing a special, maybe possibly a live podcast during Midsummer. We'll get to that as the summer gets near.
So yeah, we're very pleased to have them on board as our sponsor. It's obviously a product we believe in, or an event that we believe in.
Sure.
So yeah, thank you to Midsummer Scream for sponsoring this episode.
So what have you been up to in the past month? I just got back from Vegas. And I lost a little bit of money, but I was also there to research haunted bars, and I didn't really find any. I guess it wasn't really a big surprise.
Find that hard to believe, actually.
Well, all right. So there's haunted casinos, right? And those are all listed online. But in the case of a lot of these casinos, hotels, what's haunted are the rooms, or
true. In
some cases, it's like the backstage area or where the elevators are. It's not necessarily a specific bar, right? So at the Flamingo, they have Bugsy's bar, Bugsy Siegel.
Okay.
Famous mobster who was killed. But I think he was actually murdered in Los Angeles.
Yeah, right. Yeah. In Beverly Hills, in his home.
Right. So,
which is said to be haunted by his ghost.
So when I sat down and talked to the bartender at Bugsy's bar inside the Flamingo Casino, which is right on the Strip, the guy said, I've been working here for 40 years and I haven't seen anything. And he said, and by the way, that guy was killed in Los Angeles. So yeah, but apparently the ghost of Bugsy is still supposed to haunt other areas of the casino, just not the bar. In the case of the Westgate, which used to be the Hilton Las Vegas,
Okay.
Elvis Presley is supposed to haunt the backstage area, but
The king has not left the building.
he does not love the building. That's right. Yeah, and so there's another casino. Bally's had a horrible fire back in the 80s. A lot of people were killed during that, but they're not.
So they're not in the bars, but
They're not in the bars, but
still you can have a drink at the poker table or in the casino.
you can.
So
but I'm not going to count that.
In a sense, it is a spirits with spirits situation.
I guess. I
Or,
did go.
or could be.
I did go into one of my favorite bars. Is inside New York, New York. If you've ever been to Las Vegas, you know what I'm talking about. It's a casino that looks like, New York City. They've got steam rising up out of manhole covers and things like that. Everything is very fake. I describe Las Vegas as Disneyland for grown-ups.
That's apt.
Yeah. So inside New York, New York is a really cool Irish bar called the Nine Fine Irishmen. And the architecture of the place, the bartender was telling me, is modeled after the Trinity Library at Trinity College in Dublin. So it's really pretty inside. And when I asked if it was haunted, because Vegas only goes back so far, I could have gone to the old part of Las Vegas, where the Golden Nugget is, which used to be the old stagecoach stop back in the day, and maybe found some more stories there. But the guy at the Nine Fine Irishmen was saying there was a waitress that used to work there years back who apparently saw an apparition on the second floor when no one else was around. But I don't know. I feel like we can't really discuss that on our podcast because she wasn't there for me to talk to. I didn't get any details as to what she saw. So we're not really going to count that.
It's just sort of a vague haunting.
Yeah. But if you are in Vegas, I would still check out that bar because they have an incredible Reuben sandwich.
Oh, wow.
Really, really good.
Oh, I'm a fan of the Reuben.
Yeah. No, it's one of the best I've ever had. And St. Patrick's Day is coming up, too.
There you go.
So
road trip.
Yeah, so if you're in Vegas for St. Patty's Day, then go to New York, and try the Reuben sandwich from the Nine Fine Irishmen.
Very good.
Yeah.
Side note. We were saying it's Disneyland for adults. My father worked for the Disney company for 30 years, and
as an Imagineer.
And not known, but Disney did explore the idea of building a casino in Las Vegas.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
This was back when they were trying to position Las Vegas as a family destination before they switched gears when no families were showing up and did the what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas campaign.
Right.
So this was right before that. And actually, a little bit of trivia, it was going to be a Nightmare Before Christmas themed hotel and casino. And for those that know the movie, the Oogie Boogie has a sort of a gambling theme.
Snake Eyes! What?
So the whole casino was going to be themed Oogie Boogie.
Wow.
They were going to have, pools with water slides that were themed like ice. And
oh my God, take my money. Take all my money.
But I digress.
What about the riverboat in Disneyland? Did they ever think about, adults could maybe gamble on that, or it's not international waters?
To my knowledge, no. There was never any discussion of that.
Yeah. But we digress. But if you are from Las Vegas, or if you've ever been a bartender, if you know of any haunted bars in Vegas, let us know.
Yes.
We do have a Spirits with Spirits Facebook page, and you can send us a message through that, and we will be setting up email very shortly. So log on to Facebook and send us a message. Even if you're not from Vegas, we do want to hear your stories, and we will be reading them.
If you have a neighborhood bar that is haunted and you want to share the story, promote your little neighborhood bar, please let us know.
And we may tell your story on our next episode, episode 3 of Spirits with Spirits. So, what I'm going to talk about. Do you
Okay.
want to go first?
I went first last time. Why don't
right.
you go first?
So I went to Vegas for a couple of days. Didn't find a really good story to talk about. So I'm going to talk about a bar in New York, the actual New York, not the faux
Right.
New York casino.
Real steam coming out of the manhole covers.
But New York, Manhattan, and I was there last October for New York Comic Con, and I did a little bit of research, and this bar came up on several different lists online as the top 5 haunted bars in New York City, and that is Fraunces Tavern, and that's spelled Fraunces, and I'm originally from New York, but we moved when I was only 5 years old. I never knew that this place existed, and I'm shocked by that because my parents were always history buffs. And the history of this place goes back so far. And I'll read a little bit of that here, but I mean, we could spend an entire episode just talking about the history of this place. It was first. They believe that this place was built somewhere between 1719 and 1722.
And what part of New York or Manhattan is
This is downtown, near Wall Street.
Okay.
Very close to the water. Actually, is that the Battery? It's 54 Pearl Street. Okay. So if you're familiar, you can easily look that up on a map. But yeah, I remember getting off the train, and it was pretty much near what is Wall Street today.
Right.
In fact, it looks very out of place because all the other buildings are quite modern around that area. So just quickly go through the bullet points of the history of this place. They think it was built sometime around 1720 by the French Huguenot merchant Stephen de Lancey, who built the brick house on the property, and that basically was rented out. Someone by the name of Henry Holt rented 54 Pearl Street, and he taught dance and held balls there. Now put a pin in that because that's important. I'll come back to that, the dancing and the balls. And then Fraunces, who it's named after, purchased the building in 1762. On August 23rd, 1775, the HMS Asia, the British battleship, bombarded the city from midnight until 3 o'clock in the morning. One of the 18-pound cannonballs from the Asia crashed through the roof of Fraunces Tavern.
Very good.
On December 4th, 1783, 9 days after the British soldiers left American soil, George Washington invited the officers of the Continental Army to join him in the long room of Fraunces Tavern so we could say farewell. So, I mean, we talk about the history here. It's not just a bar, it's not just a tavern, but it's also a museum. And so when I was there, I paid the admission to go upstairs and visit the long room where Washington did address the troops. And Fraunces continued running the tavern as post-revolution life settled down. In early 1785, Fraunces agreed to lease the tavern to the Continental Congress for use as an office space for the Department of Foreign Affairs. Then 2 years later, both the War Department and the Treasury had leased rooms in the building.
Wow.
Fast forward a few years, the building is sold in 1795 to Dr. Nicholas Romaine. Under Romaine's ownership, Mrs. Orset, a widow, ran the building as a boarding house until 1800. During her management, there was an alleged murder. Ballerina Anna Gardy, who was living with her husband at the 54 Pearl Street boarding house, was murdered in 1798. Her husband was also found dead from stab wounds, and the coroner ruled it a murder-suicide. In 1883, the Sons of the Revolution in the state of New York was founded in the Long Room, in the same place where Washington gave his farewell speech. And in 1900, the building was threatened with demolition. The Daughters of the American Revolution stepped in to help save the building. So when it was restored in 1907, the building was dedicated and opened as a museum and restaurant on December 4th, the anniversary of Washington's farewell to his officers. In 1965, it was designated as a New York City landmark, and in 1977, the entire block was designated as a historic district on the National Register of Historic Places. And I thought this was interesting. In 1975, on January 24th, this was 200 years after that bombing during the Revolution, there was another bombing, which killed 4 people. the people who claim responsibility, and I'm going to butcher this, but the Fuerzas Armadas de Liberación Nacional Puertorriqueña, some terrorist organization, I guess,
of the era.
Of the era, right? And this was in the 70s, 1975. So
every 200 years it gets bombed.
Sounds like it.
So stay away in 2175.
Right. Now, this is only some of the history that I just spurted out. You can read about the more about the history on their website. But if you're in New York, I would definitely check this place out. So I just went with a friend, again, October of last year, had a quick bite, had a drink. This place has about 5 bars. It's quite the building, and you kind of walk through, and you do get a sense like you're walking back through time, right? The ceilings are very low. There's a lot of wooden beams, beautiful dining rooms. They have an Irish whiskey bar. And so I tried to talk to some of the bartenders, but a lot of them were young guys who hadn't been working there too long. So they didn't have a lot of stories for me. So it wasn't until I got on the phone with the general manager, Lisa, and this was just a few days ago, she was kind enough to tell me some stories over the phone. So she was telling me that on one table in the dining room, a glass will fly off the table. She said this has happened at least 3 times. And what she thought was strange is that the condensation on the rim of the glass will still be a perfect circle and not smeared.
Oh, when it flies through the air?
Yeah, or I guess when they find it? I was trying to make sense of that.
Okay.
Like, you think that it would smash into pieces if it was glass, but maybe it's like a metal tankard or something like that. But
the
she thought that if it were
beads are disturbed.
She told me that she thought that if it were to fly off due to gravity, then there would be smear marks. But it's not like it just teeters off the table. It like flies off the table when no one's near it. So that's a little strange, and it didn't happen just one time. It was witnessed like 3 different times. She was also telling me that the night porters who work there from 12 midnight until about 8 o'clock in the morning, they all hear parties going on and have seen people walking around. Now, remember when I said put a pin in that?
Right.
So that could be maybe
going back
these
to
dance balls happening. And I asked her, I said, well, where are they when they hear these parties? She said, well, when they're in the basement, they hear that on the main floor. When they're on the main floor, they hear that upstairs.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And she thought because all these night porters are from different backgrounds, they're from different parts of the world, they all have the same, their story could be collaborated?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and she said that one of the night porters said that the ghosts all have white eyes, which is frightening.
Whoa.
Oh my God. But that they're, quote, very friendly. But if they're very friendly, like, why are they hurling a glass off a table? Because that's kind of mean.
Wow, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the white eyes.
I know.
And the last time we talked about this, but I've heard so many stories, so many ghost stories.
Yeah.
And there is kind of a sameness to some ghost stories.
Okay.
And like, for example, I mean, we discussed last month glasses moving in bars and stuff. So I kind of look for the things that are a little bit unusual, the little like details that like, whoa, I haven't heard that before. And yeah, this is one of the very few times that I've heard of ghosts with white eyes.
Sometimes you hear, and I've heard ghost stories where the person said the apparition had no eyes.
Right.
Which is also very freaky.
Or like a darkness or something.
Right. Or if you believe in like demonic possession, that sometimes they'll see red eyes, but white eyes.
White eyes, wow.
Yeah.
Because there's my head is going a mile a minute here, because that would imply dead.
Yeah.
Because you lose the pupils when you die.
Yeah.
So that would not connote like a residual haunting.
Right.
Where somebody is repeating an action over and over again, because if they were kind of repeating it, they would still be in their living
appearance.
Right. So kind of dead people walking around is kind of a
I know.
weird thing.
Yeah, so they've
That's
all apparently
interesting.
seen them, and also
Interesting.
they've seen them walking into the office area. I didn't know.
Unless, I don't know, and maybe somebody out there is a New York historian, unless there was kind of a disease or something, an epidemic that went through at the time that maybe affected
I'm not sure.
pupil color, and
Yeah.
and maybe she's a remnant of that era.
I wish I had asked the follow-up question: how many of these night porters like resigned right in the middle, just like call the next morning and be like, nope,
Yeah.
that's it, I am out of here. Yeah. Let's see what else. So yeah, when I was there, I didn't really I didn't get a bunch of stories from the bartenders,
Well,
but one of them, yeah,
But not
they've been
quantity,
working.
it's the quality.
Well, they're not there during the witching hour,
Right.
right? They're there during working hours. But he did say a waitress apparently said that she was pushed on the stairs. So obviously they can't be all that friendly.
Well, yeah, you having pushing and you're having throwing
Yeah,
glasses.
right.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
maybe
something is going on.
Maybe the
there.
night port. Maybe they just mean, well, they never attack us when we're there,
Right.
Or they're never unruly towards us. I don't know.
Or for the benefit of the doubt, I have heard stories in bars where people get nudged or pushed, and the people of that bar, the staff, believes it's a drunken patron, the ghost of a drunken patron who's trying to make their way through the bar,
Right.
but is,
Right.
bumping into people and falling and grabbing things to steady themselves, and that's what they attribute things falling and people getting pushed
Sure,
to.
yeah.
So maybe it's nothing bad. It's just a former patron who's kind of trying to get his way through the room.
Well, and if you've ever been to New York, you know that if you walk slowly, it's like you better get out of the way,
Right.
or else you're going to be punished. Yeah. I did ask Lisa, who's been there for a few years now, as general manager. I asked her if she's seen anything unusual. She said that one time she was in the back section working, and she saw a man going up the stairs. She said there's usually a chain on the stairs, like there was that day, so that people don't go up those stairs. So she called after him, she chased after him, and he didn't stop, and he made a left at the top of the stairs, and when she got up there was nobody up there at all. And she told me, she's like, I'm 99% sure that I saw this.
right.
That because I ran after this guy, and I called after him. So that's Fraunces Tavern. Their signature drink, if you're there, it's not named after any particular ghost, specific ghost. It's called the Presidential Punch. Sounds pretty good. Jim Beam Rye, Fernand's Rye, Caraco, Gosling's Black Seal Rum, Angostura Bitters, lemon juice, and organic peach juice. I just had a beer when I was there, but this does
Interesting.
sound good. I didn't get measurements for these, but I think it's on their website,
Right.
Their menu.
And
So,
I'm assuming this is a reference to Washington.
oh, I'm sure, yeah, Washington, but also on their website, there's a quote from John Adams as well.
Oh, okay.
So, and again, like if this place dates back to 1719, it's got some history of probably more than
has
one.
it's been a tavern through that whole time, pretty much.
Well, no, in the early days, it was just leased out to different.
Okay.
So it was a boarding house where apparently that murder happened
Right, right.
in the early 1800s, and then that one guy had dance things there. But
Right.
yeah, it sounds to me like it's been a tavern for at least 150 years or so. Yeah. So
Wow.
Fraunces Tavern
Very good.
Museum.org, and then from there you can visit the restaurant part and check out their menu. And again, it's downtown on Pearl Street, 54 Pearl Street.
Very good.
That's all I have to
And
say about that.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
that was a good one.
Yeah, and I'll post pictures that I took when I was there on our Facebook page, Spirits
good.
of Spirits. On Facebook. I think it might be Spirits of Spirits podcast, but just do a search and it should come up.
Okay. Very good. All right, so my turn.
Your turn. You're up. Batter
Uh,
up.
That's a hard one to top.
Well,
But I want to preface by saying that when I started the Spirits of Spirits meetups years ago, with this idea of going to a different place every month, people would say, "Oh, you're going to run out of bars quickly. Like, don't go every month. Just find a good place and go there. And I said, no, we're going to do every month. And we did it for 7 years, every month, going to a different haunted bar every month. So what is that? 7 times 12?
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. And my point is that there were many more that I knew about that we hadn't visited.
Right.
That I kind of regretted that I stopped it, because there were still great bars out there that had great stories. And my hope with this podcast is, in addition to sharing some of the classics, or what the bars that maybe weren't around years ago and you didn't go with us, these great places in LA, is also to kind of talk about bars that we didn't visit, bars that nobody knows are haunted, that we can share on this podcast. And additionally, I was very strict in those days of it had to be in Los Angeles.
Right.
And people would tell me about great bars that were in Orange County or Newport, or places that are an easy drive from LA, but are not within the city limits, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I would always say no, no, no. But again, since we were kind of opening up the parameters here on the podcast, I would like to occasionally throw in a bar that's just outside of Los Angeles. It's a nice drive from LA. As they say, LA and environs, you know, the area surrounding LA. And that's what I'm bringing today.
Yeah.
This is a great place to have a beer in Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay.
So Santa Barbara is fairly close. For
people who don't know,
yeah.
it's about an hour and a half.
Yeah, about 90 minutes.
But it all depends on traffic.
And it's generally a place that people go up for like the weekend. It's a beautiful city, just north of LA. Like we said, 90 minutes, right on the beach. And it's kind of known for its architecture.
Yeah.
And
beautiful.
And to kind of give a little backstory or context to the place I'm going to talk about, in 1925 there was an earthquake that basically leveled the entire city.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And you know, they were faced with a problem, which is, okay, we have to rebuild everything. We have to build a new city hall, a new courthouse, a new police station, new hotels, new restaurants. So the idea kind of came up, since we have to start over, let's kind of do a unifying theme. Let's build all the buildings in one style. So it's not the hodgepodge that cities normally have of like some Victorian buildings, some, you know. And you know, there's a mission in Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara mission, and using that as their inspiration, they decided to build all their buildings in that kind of Spanish Revival, Mediterranean style.
Yeah.
So as a result, if you visit Santa Barbara today, it's a whole city of one style of architecture, of this kind of, like I said, Mediterranean red tile roofs, white plaster, wrought iron balconies, beautiful, colorful mosaic tiles.
It kind of reminded me of, you've ever been to Balboa Park in San Diego, where all the architecture is similar to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's what you would imagine like old California looked like. This sort of style of architecture. Now, having said that, the place I want to talk about sticks out like a sore thumb in the middle of all that. If you can imagine, in the middle of the sea of Mediterranean-style architecture, there's an old English cottage, completely authentic and supposedly based on an actual cottage in England, built in the 1970s. I don't know how they got the permits to veer from the accepted architectural style, but it is this amazing little old English thing right in the middle of all this Mediterranean stuff. And from what I understand, in the 70s, they built it as it would have been built hundreds of years ago in England.
Right. Like, so Tudor style?
Tudor style. Exposed wood framing work on the outside, a lot of copper, from what I understand, it's built with like wooden pegs to hold the joints together. They had to hand custom make the nails that they use so that it would be authentic. So it is an authentic. I mean, it kind of looks kitschy just because it's so English, but it is an authentic English.
I think you showed me a picture of this place, and it reminded me of the Tam O'Shanter, which is
Right.
another haunted place.
Right. And so, yeah, it looks like a building that would have been plucked right out of, I don't know, the 1700s of England and brought
Or
here.
earlier.
Or
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, so picture that. It started in the 70s as a bar called Poor Richard's,
Okay.
and it was a very popular bar for many, many years. And then, for whatever reason, the bar closed, and the building's future seemed in question. And a married couple stepped in and bought the bar to restore it. Now, this couple owned a local pizza chain, a regional pizza chain that has many locations around Santa Barbara, Rusty's Pizza Parlor, which is a beloved pizza chain in Santa Barbara. They love their Rusty's. And even Katy Perry has been quoted as saying that it's her favorite pizza. She grew up in Santa Barbara.
Well, she's got good taste.
Yes,
So
obviously.
I'm going to have to try Rusty's.
Right. So anyway, they own these pizza chains, and they decided that they would buy it, preserve it, and just turn it into one of their locations. So today it is a pizza parlor. It kind of looks like if, I don't know, if Shakespeare were going to eat pizza someplace, this would be the place that he would do it. But it is a great place to just kind of have a beer, enjoy a slice of pizza. And
Extra cheese or no extra cheese? That is the question.
there you go. And the inside is themed to the hilt as much as the outside. So you walk in the ground floor, like you said at the other place, low ceilings, exposed beams, these very cozy dark wood booths, big fireplace, copper fixtures, very kind of dark and cozy. And then kind of on the side, there's a little stairway that's not that noticeable, but that leads up a dark wooden stairway, very steep actually, up to a second floor, and there's a giant party room in that floor with a large high ceilings, kind of an A-frame, beams, again exposed wood framing, and banners hanging and stuff. Very festive.
Is this where you were suggesting we do the play reading?
Yes, yes.
People don't know what we're talking about, but
You want to explain?
sure. I wrote or adapted a Shakespearean version of Ghostbusters, which was published in 2017. And we were talking about where we were discussing where could we have a performance of that.
That's themed
Yeah,
Old English, and I
exactly.
brought up this place because obviously I love this place.
Yeah.
When I'm in the area, I seek it out to go, and I highly recommend, if you're in Santa Barbara, check this place out. And yeah, have a beer, have a slice of pizza, and just enjoy the environment and be thankful that they saved it.
Right.
And like I said, I love this place, and I was there within the last month, and I decided I'm going to ask them if there's any ghost story. I know the building's not old, despite the way it looks, but who knows? And
I hope it went better for you than when I was asking these bartenders in Las Vegas. Like they all thought I was just having a laugh.
Right.
Like the reactions I got. Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm serious.
Well, I'm happy to announce that I did get a story, and they did not laugh when I said it. They were like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I'd like to announce that this is an exclusive. That this is exclusive to our podcast. Nobody knows this place is haunted.
You heard it here, folks.
That's right. So if you see it online, or it appears in a book or something of a haunted guidebook, or know that we were the first ones to break this story.
Awesome.
Because like I said last month, a lot of these stories generally just the people who work at these places know, and they all know it, and it never goes beyond that circle.
Right.
And our hope with this podcast is to kind of get it out there to save these stories. So this is the story. And by the way, the guy who told me this was a huge, tough-looking, muscular Latino guy with piercings on his face and his arms covered with tattoos. That I was almost intimidated to ask, hey, any ghost stories? And he, very seriously said, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You could read it on his face that he wasn't jerking your chain, so to speak.
Right. And so he said, yeah, the upstairs party room is haunted by a little girl. They will, as you said with yours, they will be down on the ground floor and they'll hear pitter-patter of little feet running around upstairs. And they'll even hear laughing, from the stairwell thing. Some little girl playing on the second floor. And they'll go up and the room is completely empty. They've even had, now there's a little room off to the side of the room, like a private room within the party room. That is the round table room. They have a little round table, and it's all Knights of the Round Table themed in that room.
Yeah.
They've even had staff that goes up there to clean up after a party or whatever, see a little girl running around, giggling, laughing, playing, and, they'll do the, excuse me, you're not supposed to be up here, or where are your parents? And the girl will laugh and run into that round table room.
Wow.
Now, it's a side room, and there's no exits in that room.
Right.
The only way in and out is that doorway that connects it to the party room. So they'll follow her in, and the room will be completely empty.
Wow. Do they say how she's dressed?
No. I didn't ask that. I should have asked that, I guess. But yeah, I assume typical little girl dress, yeah.
Yeah.
But
because
yeah.
I didn't get a sense, I don't know if I asked that on Fraunces Tavern, how those ghosts were dressed. Or
like to kind of pinpoint an era.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. But the building, like I said, was built in the late 70s, so it wouldn't have been anything. And it is an upstairs, so I would assume it'd be attached to the building and not something previous.
Did they use any refurbished wood from England? Or?
Oh, this is a good point. Not to my knowledge. But yeah, this is true. It is filled with kind of weird artifacts and fixtures and light fixtures. And so, yeah, quite possibly they pulled something from an antique
Yeah, some ghosts are attached
store.
to an object and not necessarily the place itself.
Now, here's something curious I discovered in doing a little research on the building.
Okay.
And something I want to get your opinion on. Mm-hmm. So, this married couple who bought the building had to kind of, fix it up a little bit, and they had to convert it into a pizza parlor. So they had to install the giant pizza ovens and all this stuff. And I guess it was very labor intensive. And they spent, many weeks in that building every day. And they had 2 daughters. And they said in this article that while they were working downstairs, the daughters would play upstairs and fill their hours of pretending to be princesses and running around giggling, which sounds very familiar to the ghost story.
But did they die tragically?
No.
Yeah.
So this is my question, because my first thought was like, ooh, I wonder if they were playing with the little girl.
Right, yeah.
But again, it's not an old building. All right, so here was the second thought. And I will throw this out and then I'll explain what I mean. Is it possible for a place to be haunted by the living? Do you see where I'm going?
I see where there are some stories out there.
So it's these little girls are playing, and that energy kind of gets absorbed into the building. Now, normally ghost stories are like, it's a bartender, he worked there for 30 years.
Right. He didn't want to leave.
His energy, got absorbed, and then when he died, it was still there, and it kind of kept repeating itself. People would see him standing where he stood for 30 years. My point is, do you have to die? If that bartender just moved to another place, would that energy still be there and still kind of be bubbling?
Anything is possible. I mean, there's the whole doppelganger thing.
So could this be the girls played there so much that their energy is kind of there, And even though they've grown up and they're not there anymore, it's just kind of still bouncing around in that space.
Did you ask what was on the property before they built this
Oh,
pizza place?
no, I
Because I mean, maybe there was a house there, or
this is true.
yeah, there could have been a death there
But
before.
I just found it very curious that like the thing I found online was about little girls playing in the upstairs.
Yeah, but if it's a party room, I'm sure
Well, this is the
over the last 45, 50 years, there's been kids running around up there playing.
Well, and this is my point, is it just kind of absorbing this energy, and it's not necessarily a ghost in the way we think of a dead person, but a ghost of the energy, so to speak.
Yeah,
Like last month we talked about the Viper Room and how, the story has remained for decades and it keeps getting attributed to different people. But,
right.
Obviously the Viper Room has had many people using drugs, many traumatic things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be that bathroom that's said to be haunted just is absorbing all this weird energy?
Yeah,
And it's just kind of there and bubbling, and it's getting attributed to ghost stuff, and they just kind of assign it to whoever was the last person, who died of an overdose or whatever.
right. It's a fascinating thought, when you think of places like Gettysburg, where
'Cause-
it's like just this psychic imprint.
Right.
It's not necessarily like the ghosts of these
And-
soldiers. It could just be the energy of them.
And as we were saying last month, how we were going to kind of like, are there ghost stories that are specific to bars? Bars are certainly a place, just because of the nature of a bar, where there is this kind of layering of energy on top of energy and absorbing and more and more and more.
Yeah, yeah.
And could that be what's going on at these bars? They're just kind of natural magnets for this kind of, I don't know, psychic imprinting, or I don't even know what to call it.
Right. Huh. Well, I definitely want to go there and now check it out.
Yeah,
I mean, do you ever take like, EVPs and stuff when you're at these places?
No, I do though. Oddly enough, and I don't know what this says, but when I do go to this place, I always ask if I can sit upstairs. It is a party room and it's closed off generally.
Right.
But they'll always say, yeah, like if it's not being used, if there's no birthday or something going on, then yeah, they'll let me go. So for whatever reason, I have been drawn to that space as opposed to the sort of the cozy space on the ground floor. But I have not brought a recorder or anything like that.
Or not just a recorder, but I mean, if it's a ghost of a little girl, then some
Bring
stuffed
toys.
animals. Yeah, and then just set up a camera with night. Now we're getting into like ghost hunting,
Right.
As opposed to just
But yeah,
history. Yeah.
But yeah, if you're in Santa Barbara, if like I said, you're doing a weekend in Santa Barbara, and you want to have a beer and a slice of pizza and possibly encounter a ghost, then I highly recommend Rusty's Pizza.
Where is it in relationship to that Main Street area?
Okay, so the main street of Santa Barbara is State Street. That's
Right.
the main drag. It would be on Carrillo Street, about 2 blocks from State Street, 2 or 3 blocks from State Street.
Okay.
So it's right there in the center of town. And yeah, highly recommend it. I know everybody has different preferences for pizza, but like I said, this is a beloved pizza place.
Is it deep dish? Is it thin crust?
It's
Or is
thin
it-
crust.
Thin crust.
And yeah, I don't know, I like the pizza, but certainly have a beer, and hopefully you will see the little girl
Yeah.
of Rusty's Pizza, formerly Poor Richard's.
Maybe their signature drink should be a Shirley Temple.
Right.
All right.
So that's mine for this month.
Episode 2, almost in the bag. Again, send us your stories, from all over the country. We want to hear from you. If you are a bartender, currently a bartender, or a former bartender, if you're a patron of a bar that
Right.
that has activity.
And I was about to cough. Sorry. All right. Speaking of which, my sister sent me an email of a haunted bar in her neighborhood.
Oh yeah, and where was that?
She lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and obviously there are lots of. It's an old city, a lot of history,
Yeah.
a lot of haunted bars. But she sent a very unusual bar haunting story.
Okay.
It's a place called Six Feet Under. And all right, how do I put this? It's not a haunted bar per se. It's haunted adjacent, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And the appeal of this bar is that it has a rooftop patio, so you can get your drink and go upstairs, and the patio overlooks a cemetery. And according to the patrons, that as you sit there and enjoy your drink, you can see the ghosts of the cemetery wander around the grounds.
What?
So it's kind of a ghost viewing station.
That's nuts.
So I think it fits the definition because you are having a drink and having an experience, though the building itself is not said to be haunted. And I guess it's...
What time of night are we talking about here? Like last call?
That I don't know, but apparently you can probably Google this because apparently it's very popular with paranormal groups in the Georgia area. They seek out this bar for this very reason. From what I understand, it's the Oakland Cemetery, which is the main cemetery of Atlanta, where all the prominent people of Atlanta's history are buried, including Margaret Mitchell, who author of Gone with the Wind.
Sure.
So all former mayors, all stuff are all buried there, as well as thousands of Confederate soldiers are buried there as well.
Yeah.
And the most common experience is they will hear bugling coming from the empty cemetery.
Wow.
And they will hear a roll call. A phantom voice shouting out names and various voices from different corners of the cemetery, here or present, as it goes down the list.
I'm definitely checking this place out. I've never been to Atlanta, but I hope to go this year. I've been to Savannah, which I'm sure a lot of listeners have heard is very haunted, probably one of the most haunted cities in America, well, in the South, certainly.
Right.
But no, I've never been to Atlanta. And it's called 6 Feet Under.
6 Feet Under.
Very
now,
appropriate.
The other story that I guess comes up a lot is there's one crypt, above ground crypt, that has a statue of the person who's buried there, and he's sitting in a pose in the statue. And I guess his ghost comes out of the crypt, climbs to the top of the crypt, and he has a seat and apparently mimics the pose that the statue is doing. And then he'll kind of fade away into nothing.
Wow. That's like something out of the Haunted Mansion. We keep coming back to Disneyland.
So, yeah. So, if you're in Atlanta, check out 6 Feet Under. Obviously, if you want to see a ghost. And also, if anybody out there knows of a similar story, I'd like to hear it, of a bar that is not necessarily haunted, but looks out at a haunted place. Because I know there are bars that are across the street from cemeteries. There's I believe there's one in San Diego, even across from the in Old Town San Diego, across from the old cemetery.
Yeah.
I wonder if they have the same experiences. Are you going to Comic-Con,
near the Whaley House? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'm doing I did Comic-Con the last 2 years, but I missed...
Because I was going to say, if you're in San Diego anytime soon, you should check out and see if they have a similar story.
Well, I'm down there at least a couple of times a year for other conventions and events.
I'd love to know if there are other, again, because my sister knows I like the unusual, so she found this bar. I'd love to know if there are other bars out there where you can have a drink and view ghosts.
Certainly plenty of bars in San Diego in the Gaslamp District, yeah.
So, thank you to my sister, Caitlin, for sending that in. And please, if you have a local bar or a bar story, please send it in. We may discuss it on the show.
And thank you to all of our listeners and all of our followers after we posted episode 1. And hope to get this up on iTunes, knock on wood, very soon. But for right now, you can download new episodes on Podbean. Spirits with Spirits podcast on podbean.com.
And thank you, Midsummer Scream, for sponsoring this episode.
And also thanks to our composer of our awesome intro music, Alexander Taylor, an award-winning composer and good friend of mine. So thanks to Alexander. And we'll see you next time on Spirits with Spirits.